Greetings, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. Men, as we know, are delusional. They're egotistical, selfish, misogynistic, and delusional, with nothing but the audacity to blame all of their flaws and problems on women. And before I start getting a ton of comments, I am obviously not talking about all men, but I am talking about enough men to be sitting around and yelling about being lonely and calling it an epidemic and making it, obviously, of course, the fault of women. If you have not seen the conversation around the so-called male loneliness epidemic, then congratulations, you are not chronically online. But effectively, what is being stated is that men are lonely because women don't want to date them. Women don't want to sleep with them. And that is having a detrimental effect on their mental health and is spiking the male suicide rate, which is not true. There is not a spike in the male suicide rate. And it is unfair that women walk around with a superiority complex, able to get any guy they want, but choose not to. They choose to avoid men and don't want to date anyone. And that is just truly so terrible. Men deserve someone to love them. They deserve someone to confide in, or more importantly, they deserve someone to have sex with. And of course this is blamed on women because everything is always the fault of women because we are treating them like dirt, and it's unfair because we should be giving them unlimited love and sex and anything they ask for because it is what they deserve, and we need to stop walking around with such a superiority complex because it is having a detrimental impact on them and their lives. So today we are going to be having a dive into what could possibly be causing women to keep their distance from men, and what could possibly be leading to more women making the decision to not associate with men or form romantic and sexual relationships with them. I am going to put a warning here that this does get quite verbally graphic. There's a lot of talk of sexual violence and violence in general, so if that is going to be triggering for you, please do click off this video. I will give another warning when it's leaning more into that, but that is to come in this video. So if that is not for you, please click away. I will see you in the next one. That being said too, I do not think I will be able to monetize this video because it gets pretty horrific, but I think it's important to talk about, and I want to talk about it. I think that it is important to talk about these like sort of hard-hitting and difficult topics, and if you would like to support me in continuing to be able to make these videos that may not necessarily be monetized, then I would really appreciate if you interacted with this video, leave a like and comment, or more importantly, please do subscribe. Also, if you are able to, you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/savvycat, or alternatively, I believe you can leave donations on individual videos, so that would be much appreciated. If you could do any of those things, that would be really helpful because I would really like to continue to make videos like this, but it is difficult financial times. So yeah, now that I have gotten that out of the way, I appreciate your support, and we're gonna get into it. We are going to start with a few lighter things and move into the heavy stuff as we go. A woman tweeted, "The right-wing radicalization of high school and college-age men is truly one of the biggest crises in the US, and it nearly completely goes unaddressed." Which is true. The amount of right-wing and like red pill content that is being fed to boys and young men is terrifying, and the amount of them that like cling on to it and this like anti-woman sort of conversation and propaganda is terrifying. We are having a rise in men that just like absolutely despise women, and it's so scary, and it does need to have a conversation. It needs to have its own big conversation because it's really scary. And this man quoted it with a thread that says, "I want to make this very clear. Young men have nothing. Literally, we have nothing. No future prospects, most don't have skills, most don't have partners, all for reasons outside of our control. All we had was our hobbies, and we couldn't even be left alone to have that. And then for years, all our lives, from every institution, every piece of pop culture, the message has been beaten into us that we are the root of evil, that we are irredeemable and privileged. The only escape was the pop culture of the past, where we weren't hated, but even there, we had no refuge. And now we're given the opportunity, finally, many of us for the first time, to maybe, just maybe, get a future, get peace. And you tell us that we're radicalized? Most men are really, really low maintenance. We really don't need much at all. Just a hug now and then, a hobby, a challenge. To be left alone most of the time is more than enough for the vast majority of men. But that was too much to ask for. Are you kidding? Are you fucking kidding me right now? We have nothing, no future prospects, most don't have skills, and most don't have partners, all for reasons outside of our control. None of that is true. Not a single word of that statement is true. Like, why do you not have future prospects? Like, men are still, in the majority of people, in like high paying roles. They are still in the majority of people who are like CEOs and like in high up positions. Like, that is still a majority of men. They still dominate so many industries and are more likely to get hired and get promotions, etc. If you have no future prospects, that is because you have not done enough to get there. You know, like, you have to work harder now because there are more women who are competition. A lot of women are studying. More women are studying. More women are going for PhDs. More women are like working harder to get better jobs and higher paid jobs, promotions, etc. So really what you're saying is that you have more competition, but you don't want to work harder. Women have had to work so much harder to get there, and you aren't willing to put in even a little bit more effort because you just want it to be handed to you. That's what I'm getting from this. You don't have skills? Whose fault is that? Go out and learn some fucking skills, bro. We're in the same position as you. We go to school together. We live in the same society as you. If I have skills, it's because I've taken the time to learn the skills. All you have to do is the same thing. What do you mean that's out of your control? How is this anyone else's fault but your own? And then going into saying the only place you can find solace is in like old media where you aren't hated. That's wild to me. That's wild to me. It's sitting here and acting as though women have no idea what it's like to exist in a world where we are belittled for our gender. That we have never experienced media where we are made fun of for our gender or like viewed as less than for our gender. We don't know what it's like to have like media that is not centered around us because women are always the main characters. All TV shows and movies these days are just focused on women and they're all just so man-hating. Bro, give me your list of movies and TV shows. Can I watch them? Because like, still, to my knowledge, as far as I am aware and can see with my eyes that exist in the same world as you, men are still dominating the media. Most films and TV shows are still very centered around men, and women are still side characters. There is not that much that exists where you are being belittled and made fun of for your gender and being like torn into and torn down. You're just making shit up. If just getting a fraction of what women have been experiencing for centuries is causing you to be radicalized to the right and red pill, that is entirely on you. Like, you are so fragile. These men are so fragile that all it takes is to not be the main character for 5 seconds and suddenly women are the enemy. You are complaining about not having a partner and how that is outside of your control. Men don't have partners anymore. That's nothing we can do about that. I can guarantee you that going down like alt-right pipelines, becoming radicalized by the right and like red pill content is the least, like that is the last thing to do if you are looking for a partner. Why would a woman want to date you if you hate us? If you are finding peace in the past, i.e. the place where women exist as props and property, why would we want to be with you? Why would we want to spend time with you? You are the cause of your own downfall. Men are so lonely. We have nothing now. Women don't want to date us, he says after sitting on the internet and writing paragraphs about how much women fucking suck and how you're better than women. Like, gee, I wonder what the issue is. A woman tweeted, "Girls only want one thing, and it's to let a man cry in her arms and tell him it's okay." And a man quote retweeted it with, "A lesson most men learn the hard way is never ever be vulnerable or, God forbid, cry in front of a woman. She will either become instantly unattracted to you or use it as ammo in a future argument. It's a trap. Don't fall for it." You are correcting a woman on her own desires. The initial tweet was stating that this image, because the text was on an image, had been saved to a lot of women's Pinterest boards. And she said with it, girls are saving this image to their Pinterest and you're blackpilling. And then the guy quote tweeting it, blackpilling, it's so funny. Like, bro, women are literally out here saying they want to date men who are in touch with their emotions and who will be vulnerable. And you're here being like, liar. You're a liar. All of these women are lying. Do not cry in front of them. They will use it again. Source. Where are you getting this from? Like, I'm sorry if this has happened to you in the past. Some people suck. True. You were dating a bad person. Most people, and like all good people, are not weaponizing your emotions against you. That's abuse. If women are like yelling at you for crying and then bringing up the fact that you have emotions later in an argument, she is an abusive partner and you shouldn't be with her. True. Don't date people who do that. But if your advice is to then go out and like speak over women and say we don't know what we want, then you're not going to have very much success, are you? If men are out here listening to other men's dating advice and ignoring women saying what they want, I wonder what the issue is. I fucking wonder. I wonder why women don't want to date you when you are explicitly only listening to men about what women want. Like taking the word over some clueless asshole and then taking it as truth, even though he's contradicting what like hundreds, thousands of other women are saying, and then calling us the bad guys and assholes for like not wanting men to feel emotions and weaponizing it. Like, you are just making shit up to take accountability off of yourself. That's what a lot of this is, right? Is like a lot of these men are rejected or can't find relationships or partners, and then because of that they will find any reason they can to make it women's fault, because God forbid anything be their own responsibility. I stumbled upon this on my timeline a couple days ago and I had to come and add it into this because I am truly horrified. And I cannot believe that this is real. I am in shock that this is a real thing that actually happened. It is a confession from r/off my chest. And it goes as followed. My nudes were turned into a children's game. My now 27 female ex, now 33 male, and I broke up over 2 years ago, and I've only seen him in passing since. But I found out recently that over the past few years, this apparently started when we were still together, had all of my nudes professionally printed and labeled like Pokemon cards. He has them numbered. They have different powers and teams that are assigned to them. How did I find this out? Oh, well, his coworker, who's a friend of mine, had several in his wallet. That's right, they trade them at work. This is only paragraph 1, but I just am so unbelievably, like, wordlessly shocked that this is a thing that someone has done. How does this even cross your mind? How do you even think to do this? How do you do this to the person you supposedly love? To the person who loves you and trusts you? This is what you do. How does this even enter your mind? After throwing up and then ruminating for a couple of weeks, I finally reached out to him and we met up in person to discuss. He initially tried lying. How many people have seen my nudes? Just my 2 best friends. How many people have seen my nudes? I love here saying just my 2 best friends as though that's like acceptable. Being like, oh, don't worry, it's just me and my 2 best friends. That already still not okay. Absolutely not okay. You do not share people's nudes with other people. They are sent to you in confidence. That is a trust. That is between you and the person who sent them to you. They go no further than that. Once they do, you are violating that person's trust and their body, and that's taking consent away from them. There is no just anything. It's you and it's no one else. Otherwise, I don't know if it's illegal, but it definitely should be. Not that anything would come of it anyway, but it definitely should be illegal to show someone's nudes to someone else, because that's insanely fucked up. He admitted that he doesn't know how widespread this game has become, but he's had at least 7 people from other businesses in our same industry tell him that they were traded one at work. These are men I don't even know. Men who just happen to work in my industry and possibly run in the same circles. In addition to those guys, my ex verified that the 40 men and handful of lesbians at his workplace that all have large collections and still trade them, trying to have one of each photo for a full set. He estimates that he's printed and designed at least 5,000 cards over time, at least one of every photo I ever sent, as well as some screenshots of videos and of course duplicates of their favorites, which they call the Magikarp nudes. I just received my first promotion last year and I really love the industry I work in. I would love to stay and continue climbing, but now I will always have to wonder if the person interviewing me has a naked photo of me in his pocket. I hate that sending photos to someone who I was in love with, who I was in a monogamous, consensual adult relationship with, has turned into this. Not looking for advice because this is so clearly widespread that it wouldn't matter, just sharing one of the most insane things I've ever heard. This is truly one of the worst things. One of the worst things, because like I don't understand how you can even think this up. How do you receive something in love, in trust, in confidence from the person you are supposedly in love with but clearly don't give a fuck about, and do this to them? Printed over 5,000 naked photos of her and distributed them across his workplace and further out to other workplaces to trade and collect. That is so beyond words. And there are people in the comments on this trying to say that, you know, this is the consequence of sending nudes. Why did you send them in the first place? This is what happens when you send nudes. And to them, I say, I am in your walls. I am in your walls right now. What do you mean? In what way could you possibly turn this on her? People need to stop this victim blaming bullshit, because like, as an adult, as she said, in a consensual adult relationship, you should be able to have trust. You should be able to trust your partner. They were together for, I believe, 1.5 years, she clarified later on. And like the fact this was happening whilst they were dating as well, the fact that she now has to worry about literally anyone in not just the place that she works, but in the entire industry in her area, she has to worry about them having naked photos of her. The fact that this like extends so far, the fact that there were other women involved as well, like this is surely a jailable offense, right? Like this has to be illegal. I don't think it counts as revenge porn, but it's like somewhere along those lines, right? Like this cannot be legal. There's no way this is legal. Again, don't think the justice system would give a fuck anyway, but it definitely should be a jailable offense, and in my personal opinion, should be punishable by castration. I don't care. I'm so serious. This is one of like the most horrible things, and it's so ridiculous because like a lot of these men will, you know, sit there and be like, it's just a photo. You clearly didn't mind showing it off in the first place. Like, it's just a photo. Calm down. Consent. It's obviously a big deal. Everyone involved in this knows that it's not okay, and everyone participates anyway. I cannot imagine how isolating this must feel, and how you would never be able to feel safe in your place of work ever again. Even moving into a different shop, like you would never feel safe again. And then having to move like out of state or to a different city or whatever could potentially clear up the problem, but the anxiety would still be there. Like, this would cause such immense trauma and trust issues. It would take years to be able to form another like close bond with someone, especially with another man. How do you trust anyone after this? They do this shit with countless men involved and then sit back and will say, why are less women dating men? Why aren't women dating men anymore? Why aren't they giving us the love and attention that we want? Because you pull bullshit like this. And like, we have to sit here and imagine the most vile shit that a man can do, and they still go beyond that and do stuff that would never cross our minds in a million years. Like, who does this? Who thinks of this? It would never cross my mind as a possibility. Seeing shit like this happen and like seeing how many people get involved and then acting like it's a mystery that women don't want to be involved with men. Like, be so for real. Like, this is the shit we have to put up with. This is the shit we have to consider. And sure, it's not all men, but it's a fucking enough of them. This was happening in a place of work. I guarantee you everyone there knew it was taking place. And even if they weren't involved, none of them said anything. And she works in car sales, which is very male heavy. And so none of the men were calling each other on the bullshit. Most of them were involved. No one was telling her, and this was going on for years. I wonder why men are sitting alone and unable to find partners when this is what the men we love and trust are doing to us. How are we meant to know who is safe? Like, she obviously never expected this to be something he would do, but how are we meant to know who it is? And even if they're not ones who are going to participate in this, standing by and not saying anything, I don't want to be around you either. So it's not all of them, but how the fuck are we supposed to know? The next section of the video from now until the end, I'm going to be going into some darker and more horrific topics that include talk of like sexual violence, rape, and murder. It is deeply upsetting and I cried multiple times while writing this. So if that is going to be something that is distressing or triggering for you, then please do click off the video and I will see you in the next one. I just want you to be prepared and know what you're getting into because it is pretty horrific. The other day, I opened Twitter to a discussion around the fact that men deeply and truly just hate women. And it was captioned just a reminder, they hate us. And it included a screenshot of some tweets. First one being by a defense attorney and then 2 replies to him. And they read as followed. The initial tweet said, "Women when they fantasize about being raped. Aw, hell yeah, that's so hot, I'm white as hell. Women when they're actually being raped. Please don't kill me." And some replies read, "When you rape a woman, you should be able to sign a binding contract with her that in exchange for not murdering her as well, she will not tell the police or testify in court. And if she does, the court will not only ignore her, but sentence her to a long prison term. I keep saying if we really cared about saving lives, we would just make rape legal. You wouldn't have to murder anybody if it weren't illegal to rape. But nobody's ready for that conversation yet." Oh my God, I'm crying. I'm gonna be completely honest. I typed this out. I am not looking at screenshots. I typed these tweets out, and when I was typing it, I literally felt like I was going to throw up. I'm obviously crying right now just because it's so scary, you know, that like so many people think this way and act this way. Like, these tweets had like hundreds of likes. The initial tweet had 4,500 likes, which is a lot, you know, considering how many people it reached, how many more people it could reach, and how many more people could agree with that. It's so scary. It is unfortunately unsurprising that that first tweet was made by a defense attorney. You know, a lot of defense attorneys are great. Their job is to, you know, help people who are being wrongly accused in the justice system. A lot of defense attorneys help people get lesser sentences when they deserve lesser sentences. They help innocent people not be punished for crimes they didn't commit. But then you also have defense attorneys who do not do that. You have defense attorneys who willingly and proudly defend people they know are guilty and try to get them off the hook in any way possible. My mom works for the Public Defense Service back in New Zealand. She is not a lawyer, but she is surrounded by lawyers, and she has relayed to me some of the conversations that she has heard from some of these lawyers having. And some of them are just like truly so horrific. The one that's stuck in my memory the most was this one lawyer who was bringing forward an argument to use in a rape case where a 14-year-old girl was assaulted, and he wanted to use the argument that she was ovulating, so therefore the pheromones she was giving off drove a man to assault her, and therefore it is not his fault. That was an argument he wanted to use in court to try to get someone he knew was guilty a lesser sentence and put that blame on a child for literally just existing in her own body. And then you see the court cases with lawyers, like defense attorneys, holding up like lace underwear and being like, if she didn't want to be assaulted, then she wouldn't have been wearing these. She was wearing these because she wanted to have sex that night, and so she was asking for it. And the sad fact is that sometimes that shit fucking works, because we live in a society that favors men, and we have this societal prejudice where, you know, a lot of men think this way. A lot of men think this way and act this way. And, you know, they are defense attorneys, they are police officers, they are judges, they are the people on the jury. We live in just a horrifically fucked up and broken society where women are just viewed as objects of desire, obviously, and denying men is like the worst crime we can commit. And because that is unfortunately something that so many men agree with, it ends up going against us. They are the judges, they are the prosecutor, they are the defense attorney, they are the jury. They make up the people who decide these things. And because so many men think this way, and because so many men themselves are either sexual predators or enablers, they are obviously going to deflect their own guilt and let the perpetrators just get away with it, because they would do it too. These men are here saying they should be able to do as they please with our bodies because they are owed it for whatever fucking reason. It is something that they deserve, and we should just give it to them. And, you know, at least they don't kill us, you know? Like, we should be grateful that they leave us alive, because they could do that, you know? They could do that, and we're lucky that they're only violating our bodies in this way. And what they don't understand and don't realize, because it's not ever been something they've had to consider nor put any thought into, is that murder is a lesser crime. And a lot of women believe that. A lot of victims believe that, and 1 in 3 women are victims to sexual violence of some sort. So there's a lot of people who agree with this, because at least that's over quickly. You know, the trauma that comes with being raped is lifelong. It is something that sticks with you forever. It is something you have to deal with every single day. You have to suffer the consequences of that every day. You have to learn how to reconnect with your body and your mind. You have to learn how to not be afraid around other people. Most cases of sexual violence happen from someone that you are close to, a partner, a family member, a friend. And then you have to continue having relationships in your life. You have to relearn how to trust people, relearn how to love people, relearn how to build relationships and not be afraid all the time. The amount of psychological damage that comes with being a victim of that is painful, and it lasts forever to some degree. And so often we live with these consequences and this pain and this suffering that we have to endure every single day while we watch the people who committed that crime, who have led to this suffering, earn millions of dollars off of being professional athletes. We have to see their faces on billboards in the sides of buses promoting the new blockbuster that they're starring in. We have to see them get promotions at the jobs we had to quit because our place of work didn't care enough to fire them. We have to see them become the president of the most influential country in the world. We have to sit there and get a call from a detective whom is meant to be on our side, whom we are meant to trust to protect us. We have to take a phone call from him and say, hey, I talked to him and he cried. He didn't know that he was abusing you or doing anything wrong. And also, he showed me some evidence of you consenting when you were underage. So there's really nothing I can do. You'll just have to move on. And they sit here and cry about the consequences that they rarely have to face, while we have to sit here mourning a piece of ourselves that we will never get back, and having to pull ourselves back together piece by piece and try to just carry on with our lives. At least they didn't kill us. How fucking lucky we are. I find the male worldview and their view of like sexual violence so interesting. I notice it especially in the books that I read, where, you know, even in like fantasy worlds, if these books are written by men, they will often include the fact that like rape is something that is normal. It's something that you expect. It just happens. It exists. It's a way of life. And it's like, sure, it's bad, but like murder exists, you know? Versus books that are written by women where rape is like one step too far. You could have someone who tortures people, will skin people alive, will take days about like killing someone in the most horrific and brutal way possible. But rape is too far. They will not commit that crime. That is a step too far. We don't do that. That's like the purest form of evil. And I just find it so interesting to compare the two and how, you know, it's something that is real for us and that we do have to think about and like understand how horrific that is to go through. Whereas men just truly do not understand. They do not care to understand, and they like to have, you know, the ability to make it into something that isn't a big deal in order to justify their actions and the actions of their friends and other men that they know. There are some more tweets that actually reference this male loneliness epidemic, because of course there are. And they read, "This is why men shouldn't have sympathy for women who get raped or kidnapped. The loneliness epidemic is the most serious issue caused by women's unhealthy dating preferences, and they just ridicule. Men should have the same energy back, never have sympathy for rape victims." With the reply, "Women deserve to be raped. I have zero empathy for them. Ugly, average-looking men who rape are just getting what Chad and all the women get for free. Why they can get sex easily and ugly men can't. It's unfair. So for people who think rape is unfair, well, life is not fair." And a fucking laughing emoji. These men saying all this horrific, vile, violent shit and clearly just like absolutely hating and despising women with every fiber of their being, turning around and blaming it on the fact that they are conventionally unattractive is the most absurd thing ever. How are you thinking all of this and saying all of this and then somehow blaming women and the fact that they don't like you because you're ugly? Like, you are out here saying that we deserve to be violated, that we deserve to have our lives stripped away from us because it pleases you, but we don't like you because you're ugly? And it's so telling that they blame this so-called loneliness epidemic on women, not even just for not dating them, right? It's not because we aren't dating them, it's because we aren't having sex with them. They don't care about companionship or love or affection or anything. All they care about is sexual gratification. They view women as objects of desire. That is all we are to them, and it is entirely about power, not about love, not about companionship, and that is not what loneliness is. Not having someone to have sex with is not what loneliness is. Loneliness is a lack of companionship. You can go out and find, if you fix your fucking attitude and make an effort to go and make some friends, then you won't be lonely anymore. But I don't think that's the issue, because these men view each other as competition. They view each other as competition and have absolutely no motivation to want to actually find companionship. They just want someone to dominate and have power over. And that is very told through the way that they speak and the way that they act. They don't think women are worth the time of day. They don't care to have other men in their lives. So they're lonely. And then they complain that women don't want to have sex with them, as though they haven't brought that upon themselves through being just like terrifyingly violent. The only emotion they ever let themselves feel is anger. They listen to Andrew Tate and the Fresh and Fit podcast, who say things like this. This is a tweet from Myron from the Fresh and Fit podcast that he made recently. And it says, "I'm convinced if women didn't have vaginas or tits, men would spend zero time talking to or courting women. Am I right or am I damn right?" And it constitutes replies such as, "If women didn't have vaginas, we would hunt them for sport like deer." And this is on the internet proudly for all of us to see. And the Fresh and Fit podcast has like thousands of viewers, millions maybe. I'm gonna go check that actually. I actually don't know if I want to know the answer. And the Fresh and Fit podcast has 1.5 million subscribers and averages tens of thousands of views per video. So I think that really says enough about how many men agree with this sort of mindset. And once again, we draw back to the question of like, how are you sitting here and acting like this and then being confused that no one fucking likes you? I think some of the worst of this conversation and these thought processes being loudly stated on the internet is found in the replies to the tweet that is talking about the woman that was murdered by her ex-husband while they were going through divorce. She made a TikTok about how gracious her husband was being about the process and asking any women for advice on how to earn extra money because she was going to be financially independent for the first time, and she just wanted some advice on how to proceed with that and how to go forwards and make more money. But how she was so glad and grateful that her husband was doing so well with the divorce. They had a kid, and then he killed her and he killed himself and he left their child parentless, all because she was taking action to ensure her own sanity, her own happiness, and because their marriage wasn't working. I don't know the details or the specifics of what was going on in their marriage, but that doesn't matter. But, you know, how dare she make that decision to leave? How dare she do something that benefits her and might have a negative impact on him, despite her likely having been in a bad state of mind because of him for a really long time? How dare she make a decision that is so selfish? And there are so many replies that are blaming her. They read, "She is the problem. Sorry he had to go through this. This is how you fix marriage. Bring back consequences." Her video is giving, "The man I had was amazing, but I got bored." Probably because she made a video. Keep your business off the streets and at home. The whole purpose of that video was to ask how to earn money. She probably wanted a divorce so she could start OnlyFans. Divorce for fun sounds good until you realize some people take their vows seriously. Then shit really gets crazy. So consider this. Don't divorce just for fun. But hey, I'm simply here to ask the logical and relevant question that no one has ever asked. What is your life worth? Women will not accept accountability. Women also initiate 75% of divorces. Are there men who are abusive and cheat on their wives? Certainly, and I have no sympathy for them. But the women who initiate divorce because they're unhappy is a cop-out and probably are listening to their single friends. Women are women's worst enemy, not men. These replies were one after another, and they kept going. There were so many of these replies, and it is beyond sickening that so many men can share the view of this being her fault, of not being happy and doing something about it is worth your life. Like, she deserved it because she decided to do something for her own happiness. And then like the people going in there and being like, she asked how to make money, she probably got a divorce so she could start an OnlyFans. How are you so sick and twisted that that is how you view women? She got a divorce so she could do sex work. That was her motivation, because all women want to do sex work. That's in our nature. That's what we all want to do. And she deserved to be killed for it. How do people even begin to have this mindset? How is this the reality that we live in, where people think that this is justifiable behavior? You should be able to get a divorce without fearing for your life. This shit happens way too often. Like, way too often. Men hate not being in control. They hate not having the power, and they hate being rejected to the point where they will literally kill people because they had the audacity to say no to them. It is our job to sacrifice everything for men. We have to drop everything. We have to satisfy them, or this is the consequence we face. So many people seem to think that that's justifiable, and that's so scary. And these men being like, what did you expect? He took his vows seriously. And I mean, I don't know. I think I kind of expect that the person I like loved and trusted enough to have a child with would respect me enough to not kill me. That should never be a fear anyone has ever. And she obviously didn't expect that. She wouldn't marry someone she thought would have the ability to do that. This is not something she imagined was in his nature. And yet here we are. So how are we meant to know who is safe? You know, because it's not all men, but it is absolutely enough of them. It is a horrifying amount of them. And if this is what the people we love are doing to us, there are so many men who commit these crimes, but there are even more who are in the replies and out there who agree with it, who think that is okay. And they sit here and they say it behind a screen anonymously, and we don't know who they are. It could be our neighbor. It could be a sibling. It could be our fathers, our uncles, our co-workers. It could be our partners. And they just expect us to deal with it, that this is the way that life is, and that we are selfish and prudish for not wanting to date them, that we should just get over it because I'm a nice guy. You should date me, even though he's on the internet justifying murder and saying that I deserve to have my body violated. I don't know who I can trust. We don't know who we can trust. And so we will sit here and we will preach about being careful around men. When 1 in 3 women face sexual violence at some point in their life. When in the UK, a case of domestic violence is reported every 30 seconds, and they estimate that less than 24% of abuse cases are ever reported. When 41% of girls between 14 and 17 who are in relationships face some sort of sexual violence by their partner. When 94% of defendants are men and 83% of them are women. And here's an added fun little fact for you. Yet women are 3 times more likely to be arrested and charged. And that's just for the UK. When so many men have this mindset, when so many men commit such heinous crimes, when so many men vote for these people to be in parliament, who support these people in everything that they do, when they vote for a government to strip women of our autonomy and to make our lives more difficult, who are we supposed to trust? Men are the cause of their own demise. They are the reason that women don't want to date them. They have set the standard. They are the ones continuing to perpetuate it and uphold it, and honestly are just continuously making it worse and worse. And all they do is complain about being lonely, but refuse to actually work on themselves, look inward, or do anything other than blame women and continue to abuse women, which obviously makes it worse. They continue this and they continue to abuse women and then wonder why more women are making the decision not to date them. I regularly receive DMs and comments from men yelling at me for being a misandrist and a man hater, and like, yeah, that is true. And they call me counterproductive, but like, you know what? How can I not be when this is what men bring to the table, when this is what they are saying and how they're acting? When I see men calling each other on their bullshit, when I see men treat women as their equals and respect us, when I am not afraid to go out alone at night, when I don't fear being the only woman in the room, when I don't have to go through a mental checklist about every single man that I encounter. When I can feel safe and secure, then maybe I'll stop. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. Like, for right now, this is the world that we live in, and it is the world we have always lived in. And I will keep talking about it because it needs to be talked about. We are fed up with men taking anything and everything that they want and getting away with it. And when they don't, making it our fault and having the world just go with that and agree with it and carry on with that narrative. We have to just tolerate it and sit back while men do what they want and say what they want, while we are threatened and we are ignored and we are so rarely handed justice, while we suffer for their actions and lack support. I know that this video has been incredibly heavy and quite horrifying, but I just think that it's important to talk about. I've seen it come up on social media a lot recently because ever since Elon Musk bought Twitter, it has become more and more prevalent on there. And then Trump got voted in and it's gotten even worse still. There's a lot of people enabling, there's a lot of people who feel so much more confident in voicing this. And obviously these people have really always had these thoughts, but are now having the confidence to share it. And it's so scary to see. And I think that, you know, as horrifying as it is, and as much as we would like to, you know, kind of pretend it's not happening and look away, I think that it is really important to remember it's a scary world out there, you know, and we have to be really careful about who we trust, and we shouldn't have to put as much thought into it as we do, but unfortunately we do. A lot of people try to brush off how bad it is and say that we're over-exaggerating and we're overreacting. And I think that it's important to draw attention to the fact that that is not true. If anything, we are underreacting. If anything, we are not talking about how horrible it is enough. It's incredibly horrible, and it is so much easier and more comforting to sort of ignore it and pretend that everything is okay when it really isn't. I don't think it is an overreaction for people to decide to not date men anymore. If anything, I think that more people should be making that decision. I think a lot of women would actually be better off single than dating men. Like, just in general, I think that that is a better alternative for a lot of people. I think a lot of people end up in relationships and stay there just because they think that's what you're meant to do. But a lot of heterosexual relationships honestly seem like way more work than they're worth for a lot of women. Like, based off of so many other videos I've made in the past, based off of this, based off of so much, like, it feels like so many women are just settling for a lot of men because they feel like that is what they're meant to do and because the bar is so fucking low. And I think that we so downplay how important platonic relationships are. I think that it is so much better to have like a good support network and have like best friends who you love and trust and can confide in than it is to have a romantic partner that you do not have that connection with and you do not feel that safe with, and that it is so much work to be in a relationship with, you know? Sure, there are good men out there. I'm not saying to like completely throw the towel in and like give up on dating forever. I just think we need to be careful, and like so many people brush off red flags as like a one-off sort of thing. We need to not be doing that. We need to actually look at red flags, stare at them, and like understand that they're not okay and see them for the red flags that they are. And I think that it is so important to have a good support network, whether it be your family, you need a good support network of friends, etc. And because sometimes you do need to get out. Sometimes you need people to call out things. Sometimes you need people to tell you what is and isn't okay, and you need to have friends who are going to be there for you if you need to get out. I think that friendship is so important, and so many people don't value it as highly as romantic relationships, and I think that that is a big mistake that we have made. I think that friendship is equally as valuable, if not more valuable, than romantic relationships are, and we really need to take that into consideration and start making that more of a priority in our lives. The male loneliness epidemic is not real. Obviously, it is a completely made up thing that men are claiming just as another way to hate women and blame all of their problems and all of their flaws on women and make it our fault so they don't have to do any reflection or any betterment of themselves. It is just easier to make everything women's problem. If they're really that lonely, they would go and try to make friends. But as established, that is largely not what it's about. And for the people who are claiming that that is what it's about, that like the male loneliness epidemic isn't about just dating, it's about the fact that men don't have friends, If there are enough of you sitting around and complaining that you don't have friends, I have a suggestion, and it is to go out and make friends with each other. If you're all complaining about not having friends, go and make friends. And saying like, it's not that easy, we don't have time, we don't, like, neither do we. It is hard to make friends. It's so hard to maintain a social life as an adult. I really struggled to maintain a social life as an adult. It's so hard to have friends and to go out and to see friends. But I'm not out here making it everyone else's problem, because I understand that it is my responsibility to go and make friends. Like, men just love to make it everyone else's problem. Why isn't it easy? Why isn't it being handed to me? You have to work for shit, man. You can't just expect your entire life to have everything you want handed to you. That is not how it works. And the second that that is what takes place and they're not handed things, they become fucking alt-right neo-Nazis. Like, it's absurd. It's ridiculous, and it's so scary. Everyone, be careful. Know what you're getting into. Pay attention. Don't hand out your trust too easily. It's a scary world out there, and I'm so sorry to ruin all of your days with all of this. I just think it's really important to sort of bring attention to it and talk about the horrifying state of the world, because it is true, it is happening, and we need to be aware of it so that we can be careful. A massive thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons. M.A. Ping the Games, Blue Kitsune 24, Ash, Uh-Oh It's Craiglow, Phil the Duck, Jessie, Phenomenally, River, Mr. Noodle, Queen Glimmer, Ella, Lady Nutbar, Radsack, Knitting Menace, Chris, Ellie, and Bobby. I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining. If anyone else would like to become a patron, you go to patreon.com/savvycat. Click the top link in the description. For as little as £1 a month, you get my videos a day early and ad-free. And for £3 and up, you get things such as outtakes, bonus mini podcasts, live streams, and more. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. When you close your eyes, you replay